Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
I welcome you back to part 2 of a 2-week series, and we're dealing with a very humanistic story. It's about an organization called Students Today, Leaders Forever. They are an organization out of Minnesota, and was started by a group of young students in a dorm trying to serve humanity, and it's really grown until many high school students and college students around America are part of this. As we're doing this show, they've done 78 tours and over 38,500 volunteer hours have been put in, and 3,056 people are participating, including our guests today that we're so proud of from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. First of all, I welcome to the program Jill Rowley, who is a counselor at Lake City High School, and Greg Summers, who is a counselor at Coeur d'Alene High School, and one of the students, both from Coeur d'Alene High School and North Idaho College, is Lucas Cole. Welcome to all three of you, and welcome back from last week. It was really very touching, and I know our viewers will find it equally so today as we talk about you giving up your spring break to go work with homeless and other people in both Seattle and Portland, and the students like Lucas had to pay their own way, and I know you had scholarships from some students that were low income, but congratulations. And as always, I'm pleased to have regular panelist Erna Reinhardt, who's Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and she will start today's questioning.
Thanks, Tony, and welcome to the show again. We touched a little bit about the 5-day trip that you guys went on last week, and we're going to revisit that again this week. But Greg, let's start the show by just explaining a little bit about what the Pay It Forward Tour is and a little bit about the national organization that oversees that program, in case there are some viewers that have never heard of it and may want to somehow get involved.
The Pay It Forward Tour is an opportunity, an event, I guess you could say, that the organization Students Today, Leaders Forever has created and began to lead across the country. Pay It Forward Tour, what it does is it allows students, whether they're at a high school or whether at a college, to be able to join a team that is going to take time, whether it's, in our case it was spring break, but take a series of 7 days or so to be able to travel around and do community service in different areas along the way, stopping in a location in each spot. So we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about our tour and the different stops that we had. Students Today, Leaders Forever was started by 4 college freshmen at the time that said they wanted to change the world and got together and created an organization that is going to go out there and make an impact, believing that one person can make a difference. If you start here, and the way that can spread just by doing something, one kind thing for one person, the way that can spread and pay it forward.
Excellent. And Jill, you went on this particular trip that you took of these 35 high school students from Coeur d'Alene. You went to Seattle, you went to Portland, you went to the Oregon coast, and you went to Yakima, and then you came back home. It was a lot of miles on a bus.
Yes.
But tell us how the two of you came up with this idea to put these 2 high school groups together and go out and do such a wonderful thing.
Well, Greg and I are lucky enough to have known each other before we worked in these positions at the 2 high schools. So when Greg came back and was sharing about, hey, I met this kid in Minnesota, of all places, that's doing this thing called Pay It Forward Tour. And I was like, what? And so that was like in the spring of, it must have been
3 years ago.
06, yeah. That we just knew next year we're doing it. I mean, it was just we are taking kids on a trip. So at that moment, we really kind of started planning and thinking about how we were going to pull it off, and the money situation, and teaming up with STLF and trying to get them on board to come help us. And we just knew that it was something that we needed to take our kids on. I mean, it's too good of an opportunity for our kids to not be part of it. So.
And it's one thing, I think, to do community service in your own community, and I think there's a lot of that through different organizations, both through the high schools or whatever agencies there are in our own community. But to take 35 high school kids, I think you're very brave, and put them on a bus with a few adult supervisors to some big cities is a huge endeavor. So Lucas, let's ask you, you're going through your regular routine day at high school. Share with the viewers what it was that made you want to go on this trip. I mean, what you could have just stayed home at spring break and had a good time and played video games and watched TV, but you decided that there was something about this trip that intrigued you.
Well, I've always been into community service and political action and that whole spectrum of activities. And I am a mentor at Lake City High School, and Jill runs that over there. And we had a meeting one day, and this program came up during the discussion. And I said to myself that I wanted to do that. And so I decided to go down and get the paperwork and signed up for it. And I knew when they were describing it that was something that I wanted to do. And going out to other communities and helping other people in that sort of fashion was my kind of activity.
Well, we'll reveal again for those who weren't here last week, Lucas, that this is your mother. And if you stayed home and played those games, I don't think she'd be as proud of you as she was. She's beaming over there, and she should. You are really a special person, and you have effect on other students too, because you do have that very, very, very strong social conscience. When you got back, Lucas, last week, I don't want to just repeat the show. Last week we talked a lot about the individual cases that you and Jill and Greg saw and how it affected them. And we might have some different case studies this time, but I want to talk for a minute about when you returned. Not only did you make some new friends at the other high school, we're pretty large our schools, and so is that carrying on? And then the other part of the question is, are you sharing that with other students? How are you using that here at home now that you've returned from this remarkable trip?
Well, the friendships that I struck up from other schools and still with kids from my school that I wasn't very good friends with before.
This is both Coeur d'Alene and Lake City High Schools.
Yeah, together.
Okay.
Those friendships have continued, and doing a lot of the activities that we do, people get like a special bond together, and that really keeps a friendship together. And being able to share those experiences with my friends.
That did not go on the trip.
Yeah, that did not go on the trip. It did have an effect on them, and I had a lot of friends that wished that they could have done that activity with me, or a similar activity. And being able to share that and express that and have it affect somebody and want them to do the same kind of thing was really powerful.
Are you predicting from that experience that both here locally and on some future trip that some of the students who did not go will probably become active in the process?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I went, was students who went last year helped convince me to go, because they always talk about it.
Well, and if I can also, Tony, is mentioned one of the things that we've been gearing up for ever since, even before we went on this trip, was last year we also have another person in our school district who serves her school, and like Jillian and I do, and that is Gwen Crabtree over at Lakes Middle School. This year she was unable to go on the trip. She did go last year, but she was saying that she wants to do something with Lakes Middle School and the students there. And as we were talking, one of the things we decided to do was take students from this year's tour, give them the opportunity to join a leadership team who then will create an experience for Lakes Middle School students. So as a matter of fact, tomorrow is going to be our first of 3 leadership team meetings, getting together with those students so they can create this experience where we're going to go out to one of the camps nearby, help them with their spring cleaning, and then also serve some households right around the Lakes Middle School to be able to help with yard cleanup and for people who may have a difficult time doing that themselves.
Our senior citizens and all. The fact that number went and come home, and then last year you have about the same number?
We did.
So you've had
a little less, but
you've had almost 70 students do it. And when they bring that home, then it can really spread, because a lot of people who didn't go on the trip or couldn't for whatever reason, they can help look, and these students will inspire them to become involved in that process. Before I ask you a question, Jill, I just want to praise our students at both those high schools, and then others are doing some great things at Post Falls and other places that I know about, and they have some human equality clubs and other things. But one thing your 2 high schools have done, and I speak around the United States, and I said in some of my speeches on the East Coast that I don't think there are any high schools probably in the nation doing what they're doing. You have a program called, well, it's a sports event, between the two schools, and you want to promote good spirit rather than negative, and you have the Fight for the Fish. And every year they sell links to a human rights chain and give the money to the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, which is 27 years old, and they've given over $12,000 in those years to that program. So playing off of that, has some of those experiences in the past and how they're involved also helped with this new program.
Oh, I mean, I think anytime you can spark that in an adolescent, that there's more than what's in our community, I think that's just going to spread. I know even during homecoming, they raised money, $1,300 for to build a house over in Africa. You know, they just said, we're going to take these 5 days and raise as much money, and they did it. They pulled it off. So our kids are absolutely phenomenal. We come from a community and a group of adolescents that we are very, very fortunate to work with.
And I had another motive for doing this. I was reading a letter to the editor last week, this lady, and she just thinks they're all going to hell. She just said young people, none of them are doing anything good, and I respectfully totally disagree. And so sometimes as people get to be older, they think that the next generation is not doing great things, and so I did want to editorialize and say you are doing great things. With this, let's take a look through the slides again. This time we have 10, and if the staff will put them up, we will take a look at the first slide here as I get them up on the screen.
Go ahead.
This was at the Head Start building in Yakima, and when we were there, we did a lot of landscaping and yard work, and we were transplanting a lot of plants and just cleaning up their grounds for make it like safer and cleaner for the kids.
That's great. We'll go to slide 2, and Ollie, feel free to step in on any of these slides.
This is our entire team once we returned home back in the Lake City High School parking lot, and everybody's still, you know, excited to be together but ready to be home.
Share with us, they had to give up showers for a few days.
We had one shower during the week. We left on a Thursday afternoon, and we returned home Monday night, and our only shower was Saturday. And I think some students threw in a couple showers on that day.
Yes, they did.
But the point is, it gives everyone appreciation of what you do have when you come home.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The third slide.
This is the Oregon Coast, and you know, STLF, which is just one of the college students writing it in the sand and sending it to all our college buddies.
Yeah, the students today, leaders forever.
Correct.
Yes. And the next slide.
Oh, this is the principal at the bilingual school, which is absolutely quite amazing. Over 24 languages spoke at the school.
300 students.
300 students from the ages of 10 to 21, because you can get public schooling to the age of 21.
And they have someone there for each language.
And they have people that can either speak multiple languages or one language, and you know, and they're there for up to, you know, the max 3 semesters. So they really are trying to give them as much English and math skills that they can go be placed into a public school somewhere.
Was anyone out of your group that spoke a language other than English?
There were some of us that spoke a little Spanish. We tried.
So that was a
That
more
was
direct
very fun.
communication. Yes.
Yes.
The fifth slide.
This was at the bilingual school, and it was during one of their computer classes, and we would have these questionnaire forms and go around and meet up with the bilingual students who had the same questionnaire form, and there were simple questions like favorite color and favorite food.
Did all of you fill those out before you got there?
No, we would ask each other the questions.
And you would fill them out in your communication with one another. And the sixth slide.
This also is at the secondary bilingual school, and
this is in Seattle.
In Seattle, Washington, and in addition to, you know, working with the students hands-on, we're also being able to, you know, just helping to serve the school, helping them with landscaping, doing outdoor cleanup, and so this is just one of our teams. We rotated through, so everybody got their hands dirty a little bit, as well as tutoring or doing interviews.
That's very touching. Number 7. The bus again.
That is all the luggage that comes along, which was quite amazing how much was
I assume
underneath.
that everyone was limited how much luggage they could bring.
Yeah, well, we told them a bag and make sure you have a sleeping bag and a pillow because that's going to be important since we're sleeping on floors. So, and that's another thing about the tour is that, we're staying in community centers and in church floors, and we had a bed one night. So, and that was halfway, the same night we had a shower, we had a bed. So that night was absolutely great. So, that's I commend the kids also. Some of them had mats, some of them didn't. They were sleeping on cement floors. So.
And the 8th slide.
Is that
Well, that's at the
bilingual?
secondary bilingual school as well. And, the one thing to point out is on their walls, being from northern Idaho, diversity is limited somewhat. And so being able to go in there and see the same even sign that was given directions for lunch,
Right.
written in 8 or 9, different languages, to see the artwork that students were doing, and you can see the cultural flair, that comes out of that, whether it was an Asian community or African community or whatever.
The next slide.
I believe these were metal butterflies that were along the fence line at the bilingual school. And I don't know if there was writing. I know one of our students just was out working. It was like, ooh, metal butterfly. So.
They used a lot of art, didn't they?
Yes.
Music
Oh,
and art are good ways to
Communicate.
transition over different cultures and all.
Yeah.
It's a common way of communicating. And the last one.
Lucas.
This was at the bilingual school, again, when we were working outside for the landscaping and spreading mulch.
Well, we really thank you for bringing those along because we think the visuals are really helpful. And with that, Erna Reinhardt, you have the next question.
Well, the slides really talked a lot about the bilingual school, so let's share a little bit of more in-depth details about what you did when you were in Portland, because I think that was really powerful and probably really significant for a lot of those kids. So Jill, share with us what that activity was. Each place that you went to, each location had a little bit of a different activity.
Correct.
Share with us what you did in Portland.
Friday evening, we were able to join another organization in downtown Portland, and it is downtown Portland, and it's Under the Bridge Ministries. And there was about 300 people packed in this building for around an hour, figuring out where you're going, what are you going to do? Are you going to go walk the streets? Are you going to go under the bridge and do this? And that was a little overwhelming. All of us were kind of looking at each other going, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull this off? Yeah. So we did not go walk on the streets because we had a limited time. So we all went under the bridge, and during that time, our kids, they were right to it. They were going and grabbing hot cocos and coffees and putting out chairs and tables and setting up the food. There was a hair cutting station. There was a blanket station. There was a homeless person could go and get their feet washed and massaged and cleaned and a new pair of socks given to them. And really our kids, because we only had an hour to be there, really, they just really went out and just started talking to people and hearing their stories and why are they here and how did they get here, and so that was really powerful. And we are also, the next morning, Saturday morning, we serviced at Salvation Army for about 4 hours, helping them get organized and cleaned up in their building. So
I just want to say that what you have allowed these students to do is life-changing, and they're going to remember those 5 days for the rest of their lives. So what do you have planned for next year? Do you know yet?
We've actually, we're talking about that on the whole trip, and what do we want to do this next year. One of the things we know that we want to do is to continue that connection that our students get to have with others, because it's in those things that makes a difference in both their lives. For our students to be able to talk with, and even to be able to meet a mother who is on the streets and unfortunately she's been separated from her kids. It truly is remarkable the impact that can have. So we want to be able to continue those kind of opportunities for the interpersonal development. But at the same time, we don't want to rob the kids also of just doing some manual labor as well as serving an organization that is serving others. And so we're limited here in our area with large cities to be able to go to. So we're finding a route that's working pretty good, but we'll probably go back.
Last year our route was different. We serviced in different towns. So, you know, that's always kind of nice for the returners, the kids, you know, so it's not the same route or the same colleges that we're visiting. So that plays into it. You know, how can we get from A to B and get home in that A to B route? So, you know, we talked about servicing just Idaho and trying to hit Idaho communities and going that route. And yeah, we haven't quite dug into that quite yet. So
Excellent.
My dear friend Erna Reinhardt said a minute ago, it's difficult to travel with 35 students. I would have to humbly disagree with these special students. When they're social justice oriented, I think that it would be okay. I don't think it'd be really a problem at all. Anyway, I'm just honoring them again in that way. I always on this program ask philosophical questions, and my guests always kind of look up like, oh, what's coming next? And I'm going to start with you, Greg, on this one. And it's similar to some things that have already been discussed, but I thought Erna was going to take my question, so I was really hoping she wouldn't. And she has great questions. You've talked about how the students were affected by this trip and all, and Erna suggested that somewhat. I want you to get somewhat personal and say, in your own case, each of you, I mean, if you can, in a more specific way, how has this, in your case, 2 years in a row, how has this changed your life forever?
I've had the privilege, and I can say that, you know, wholeheartedly, honestly, of being able to work with students pretty much my entire professional career.
Right.
The last 2 years at Coeur d'Alene High School, part-time as well. And for me, it is an absolute pleasure to be able to be a part of the, you know, my own personal growth, but also in the midst of that, being able to see teenagers grow, being challenged, and through those to be able to, you know, gain more resources to be able to be more successful, learn more about ourselves. I think any time that we can take the opportunity to be more aware of how we react, how we grow, you know, aware of how we respond to others or whatever, the more we can be aware of that, the greater opportunity we have for growth. And this trip also offers an opportunity for us to be more aware of those other social issues that other communities and people are experiencing.
What is so interesting, there's a moment in one's life when you go somewhere and it changes things. It was you, Greg, that had the visit, this all happened. So do you often think of the fact that if you hadn't taken a certain trip, like if you hadn't met those young people in Minnesota, you might or might not have ever heard of this? So aren't there important moments in our life when we meet someone that not only affects us, but also we bring that back to others? That was one of your great trips, wasn't it?
It was a good trip. And to just be able to look at the partnership that we're having with people, you know, all over the place. You know, whether it's in Minnesota, Portland, Oregon, to be able to say, you know, that we're really, bottom line, you know, we're here to be able to make an impact on other people in a positive way.
Jill, how's it changed you?
It really is. I'm a Coeur d'Alene girl. You know, I wasn't born here, but I've lived here my whole life. I just think anytime that I can put myself out there and be vulnerable to other people and let them know, even my students, you know, they get to know us on a totally different level than they would at the school. And that in itself just really gives you strength to do more. I mean, it really gives you the courage to step out and try different things. And as a parent, I have 2 young daughters. It really helps me give them the courage and the strength to approach other people and to be sensitive to people's situations and what people are going through. And so, you know, every year you learn a little bit more about yourself, and you know, our students learn probably more about ourselves than we'd like, but
one thing I like about this program, you say things that generates thoughts and other questions, and that is, aren't you saying, Jill, and I assume Greg too, and I'll get to Lucas, but not only are you a role model for the high school students that went with you, but it over time will affect your own family.
Absolutely.
Your daughters will see what you've done.
Absolutely.
And they will relish that. I've said to several parents, well, your children are doing so and so, that's so outstanding, but you know, you parents deserve a lot of credit. So you're role models in that way.
Thank you. I like.
My daughter was able to go on the trip with us last year, She was a freshman at Coeur d'Alene High School, and she went on the
She
trip
couldn't
last year.
because you're too young for that.
Yeah, that's right.
You look so young.
Yeah, well,
anyway, that's
thank you
great.
very much.
That's great. See, that's again the story about how it's affecting her.
Yep, absolutely.
And Lucas, now your turn.
Well, growing up in Coeur d'Alene, homelessness and a lot of these problems aren't real eminent here. And being able to go to big cities and personally interact with a lot of people who are less privileged and less fortunate than you are has a really profound, deep personal impact on what I'm grateful for and the opportunities that I get and I'm able to share with other people. And this whole trip was as much like an inward journey and being
An inward journey.
An inward journey.
What a great
And
idea.
being able to discover what I can do and how much of a difference I can make was really a big part of the trip.
You know, you've already done a lot of things, and this just enhances it and maybe escalates it. But you've joined us in some human rights work. You marched in a parade with us in human rights and all of that. Based on all of this most recent experience, is this in any way? I'm not trying to get you to commit at this point, especially with Mother sitting here. But does this have anything to do with maybe where your career is going to go, or what you're going to major in, or you know, you don't have to totally commit to it, but I'm just wondering if that is in any way impacting you too.
It does spark a lot of interest in a lot of careers and fields that I probably otherwise wouldn't have looked at. And just joining maybe the STLF organization is now an opportunity that I could see myself doing instead of just limiting myself to what I had planned.
You already were, but you're such a people-oriented person that whatever you do, you're probably going to be working with people very much.
We want to have him come back and be a college leader when he's in college.
Yes, well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Thank you all three. It's been a pleasure having you here for 2 weeks, and congratulations, and we commend you so much for your charitable work. And I'm referring you again to the book called The Tipping Point. I think that's happening in this situation. And those young people in Minnesota, it'd be great to meet them because they must get tremendous enjoyment out of how this is spreading and how they're part of it. So again, thank you for doing it, and thank you for being on our program. And Ernest, always thank you for your questions, and congratulations to your son.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be with us again next week at this same time, and we'll interview someone on another subject. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.